Hello, everybody. This week I'd like to talk about how preparing to study a foreign language and doing some preliminary steps is more likely to carry you through to success in studying that language than is just plunging in and hoping that you'll be able to do it. Because, as the title says, there are things I think that you should know and do before you start studying a foreign language. And the reason for that is, as I mentioned in my video last week and many times, it's a well-known fact that the odds are pretty much against any person who sets out to start learning a foreign language. The majority of language learning attempts are abortive, and particularly beginners, people who've never studied a language before. The attrition rate in any program is extraordinarily high. I can't venture a statistic, but it's probably in the double digits against you if you're just setting out with no prior experience to enroll in a language project or a language learning program, to take a class or to work your way through a textbook. The odds of your actually, if your goal is, the definition of success is to finish the textbook and to get something out of it and to retain that and to move on with it, that's a hard task to achieve. The odds are against you. So the first thing to know about learning a foreign language is that, and not to be discouraged by that or to take heart to think, well, then I can't do it. It obviously is something that can be done. I would say that, let's make an analogy. Successfully completing a foreign language program of study, as I just said, finishing a textbook, getting something out of it, and being able to progress from there and retaining what you learn, it's kind of like maybe running a marathon. So running a marathon is a hard thing, but if you prepare for it and train for it, there are surprising numbers of people that can do that. You hear no end of stories of former couch potatoes who are doing it now, or have done it to prove something to themselves and are happy, or maybe do it multiple times. And learning a foreign language is also something, once you've done it, once you've learned how to do it, it's something you can do multiple times much, much more easily than that first time. So the first thing, as I said, is to know that the odds are stacked against you, and to say, well, why? And what are the things, what things can I do to reduce those odds? Because there are a lot of things that you can do, and I'll tell you about them right now, some of them. And again, there's no one-size-fits-all program or approach to studying languages. My approach is very much a bookish one for people who are somewhat old-fashioned and sort of more maybe culturally inclined to learn a language than pure practical ends, who want to do it as sort of a challenge to themselves. My videos are made for people who like learning languages, who like the idea of learning languages. There are many people out there I know who are enamored of the idea of someday sitting down and learning that language. It's sort of a constant New Year's resolution that they have, is someday to learn and teach themselves a language and be able to use it and really know it. So how do you do that? You don't just plunge in, because, as I said, the odds are strongly against you. You need experience to do that. You need to get some good experience, and you need some basic prior knowledge that I think most people really don't have. So here's my program. If you're the kind of person who likes my advice, if you're sort of described by what I just said, if that's your motive for learning languages, before you start studying a language, you should take a couple of months to do some preliminary studies, to do some groundwork. That if you do these things first, then when you actually start studying the language, you'll have a lot of things in place that will really increase your odds of succeeding. So I think you need to take a couple of months of doing some groundwork before you actually dig into studying the language. And there are a couple of steps. And the first thing I think that I would want you to do, I would suggest that you do if you want to increase these odds, is you need to go to the public library and you need to check out a couple of books. I don't want you to get digital books or ebooks or Kindle books. You need a physical book. I want you to get a couple of books. You need 3 different kinds of books to get. You need to get, particularly if your goal in learning the language thus far has been more along practical ends, personal ends, other things, if it hasn't been culturally oriented, it's really important that you get a book about the history and the culture of the language that you want to learn. Really, learn who these people are, what they've done, where they've come from, what you can look forward to reading, or what movies you can look forward to watching, just about the culture. If you do have some interest in the culture already, some particular interest, try both to get some more profound knowledge of it and some bit wider interest. particularly if maybe your reasoning is cultural already, get literary. If your goal is to read literature in the language, get a book by your favorite author, one of your favorite books, and really read it and reread it several times, telling yourself that you're getting to know the content very well, because someday soon you're going to read this in the original. And the better you know the story, the easier it will be for you to follow before your knowledge would really make you ready for that. So if you know a book well, you can read it. So you want to get something really interesting and fun for you to read that is about the culture of the language that you're using. We also need to get a general book on world languages, an encyclopedia of language, a book of world language, a descriptive book of, it doesn't have to be a textbook on linguistics, but something that talks about different languages, language families, how they're related, how they work, what languages are. So you have a better concept of the phenomenon of a language. And then, presuming most of my viewers are that you're a native English speaker, unless you are an English grammar professor, you probably don't have all the terminology on the tip of your tongue. You could probably use a refresher. Most of people speak their native language in an unconscious fashion. We want to make your knowledge of English conscious. You want grammatical terminology to know it, and you want to have a sort of a conscious knowledge of how the language works. So I want you to take these 3 books and probably read them in that order. And I want you to read them first and foremost after you get these books. The next thing to do is practice habit stacking. I'd like you to find, the classic example is the morning cup of coffee. A habit that you have already, something that's pretty fixed, something you do every single day, kind of without thinking about it, that's a pleasant thing. And hopefully you have some time around there, something you can do, so you can start adding some time onto that. So it doesn't have to be a long period of time at first, but it should increase. If it's a hard thing for you to do, you can do it for a couple of minutes at a time, but ultimately you want to be able to sit down with these books and read them for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, ideally in the morning. And when you sit down to read these books, I want you literally to say to yourself aloud, set an intention by saying, let's say, this is my language study time, and sit down and do it. And if you find your mind wandering, say, this is my language study time. And if somebody asks you to do something, say, this is my language study time. And if you're tempted to pick up your phone, don't bring it with you. Say, this is my language study time. And just really get into a habit of reading consistently for that, say, 15-minute time period, and thinking that this is devoted to your language studies. And then once you have that established, okay, you're going to go through these sequence of books in that sequence. I'd like you to really work on that until probably a day will come when something interferes with your sitting down to do that, and you feel a bit, not panicky, but you think, I want to sit down. It's become a habit. For some people that takes less time, more time, a couple of 30 days or so it might take. Might even take even longer. So if you go through these books, reading them in this term, setting this habit, what will you do? You'll set aside a time period to study that you can then later plug your language studies in. You will get more excited, more interested in knowing about the culture of the place that you're doing. You'll have more motivation. You will understand something about the phenomenon of languages, what they are, how they work. And you will, again, you'll know the terminology that you need to read descriptions of grammar in a foreign language. And that can be complicated. Languages work in different things, and it's easier to understand if you understand the terminology. There are people who think that you should just learn a language like a child does. Different strokes for different folks. So I think if you have an intelligent, educated mind, you're better off using it than pretending that you don't. Grammar can be pretty interesting, and it's important to understand the terms that are being used to describe it. So you get that. And if you followed my advice and gotten books, you will be breaking your habit of studying on a multitasking device. And language study is only valuable to the degree that it's totally focused. So it's just easier to do that if you're not using something that you're always distracted on. And you will also just be getting in the habit of doing something with systematic regularity. You'll have the time set aside. So those are some benefits that you have from setting this aside. And once you get that feeling, oh, this is getting established, probably after you've read the culture book and you're into the language book, the language study book, I'd like you to try to work on developing a second habit, and do that by going to the park in the afternoon. If you've managed to get this habit started in the morning, go to the park in the afternoon and go for a walk. And do the same thing. Make it a good walk. Make it a brisk walk. Make it a walk with intention. Make sure your posture's good, you're breathing right and deeply, and tell yourself the same thing. This is my language study time. This is time for me to think about languages and work on languages. And again, you can start small, but just a couple of minutes, but work it up to, a good quarter hour. So you've got something and you're saying, this is devoted to language. And how's it going to be? Well, in the first place, when you start doing it and it's shorter, I'd like you to go over what you read that morning. If you've been reading the Encyclopedia of Languages, just sort of revise that in your head and think about that. Really consciously make an effort just to use this time to think about languages. But then, more importantly, your books will probably be due at the library. You got to return them or renew them or do something else. Next time you go back to the library, I'd like you to check out a whole bunch of different all audio language materials. Get Pimsleur, Michel Thomas, Learn in Your Car, whatever they have, just a wide variety of languages that are, just because you're curious about them now. And you've been reading about them in the Encyclopedia of Language, and on your walks in the park, you can put them, again, not on your phone, but on some sort of dedicated device, a little MP3 player or something, so that you won't be distracted. And I'd like you to listen to those and do what they say. They'll say, repeat, say something. And without pressure, because these aren't the languages that you're planning to learn, that you're wanting to learn, just try to make this an enjoyable exploration. Make it fun. How do you say this in that language? How do you say that in the other language? A lot of these courses are kind of the same for each language, and so you'll be able to compare and contrast. And by doing this, again, you will get up a habit, several important habits. You'll have a second devoted time to language study that you can say afterwards, all right, I'm ready. I've got this time ready to plug in. You'll have a positive, fun experience sort of playing with languages. And I think that's a very important concept. It might sound like a funny word, but it's true. If language study can be fun and enjoyable, you're much more likely to continue with it than if it's a burden. So if you can learn how to have this sort of positive, fun experience, this is a vital thing. I'm outside walking in the fresh air, and I'm listening to languages, and this is fun, and this is like a stimulating growth experience. And I'm exploring, and I'm getting an idea of how different languages work. So by setting that up, after you've done that for a while, you'll have read this, and then by the time you have the grammatical terminology split in your head, then you can take the real textbook, the real material that you want to work with, the study of the language that you want to work with, and now you can have a go at it. And I think that you will have reduced the odds against you greatly. They probably still will be, probably like 2 to 3 or 3 or 4 against you or something, but you will definitely, in the first endeavor to learn a foreign language, your first sort of odyssey or venture into it may still be abortive, but the reasons will probably much more likely have to do with external factors. You get sick, you have family obligations, something in your job, things get in the way, break the schedule, the routine, much more so than you feeling like you failed, that you're not getting it, that you're doing something wrong. So you'll be much less likely to have a negative experience, that even if you do need to stop your first language learning venture, you will have learned so much about language learning that when you try it a second time, you'll have higher odds of success, higher and higher. And I think if you follow this sort of basic attitude is, okay, well, this should be a fun procedure. I should be enjoying it. I should be growing from it. I need to have a dedicated time to it. I need to have some background knowledge of what a language is and how languages are structured and how they work. I need to understand the terminology that's used for it. I need to have like I said, yes, a dedicated time and place for doing it. And if you have all that ready, if you have all that in place already, studying in small bursts systematically each and every single day, when you start to apply that to a specific language, you will have much, much better chances of success. So I hope that advice is useful and valuable to you. And again, as always, when I conclude my videos, I'd like to mention that I have an Academy of Languages and Literatures where I have a course called Principles of Polyliteracy where I talk about these things in more detail. And I have a number of courses where I'm helping people walk through the process of learning a first foreign language by literally doing the same thing I just talked about, meeting for 15, 20 minutes a day and actually going through the textbook, showing what to do, how to do it. And then when you get to the point of reading and discussing literatures in foreign languages, that's my real love. I've got a number of classes where we do that. So if you're interested in the kind of things I talk about in my videos, please have a look at my website. Think about if you'd like possibly to be involved in any of my classes. And if so, you're always welcome to come by for a visit or two before you commit, and we'll take it from there. So thank you as always for listening to me, and I will talk to you again next week.